Hi, fourth grade friends. It is time for chapter 17 in our Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Thank you, Sterling Publications, for allowing us to do this read aloud online. Remember back in chapter 16, our character development is kind of a big deal right now. So Avon has met a couple new friends. A little connection that they have is each one of them is a little bit different from the regular or most of the kids their age, and that has become kind of a bonding or a common thread for their friendship. So I'm kind of waiting to see how these friendships develop and where that takes us in the story. We also have a little underlying theme with the little murder mystery going on with the Kavanaugh, original owners of Stagecoach Pass. So, how much of that do we believe? I don't know. Let's read chapter 17 and see if we get some new clues. So, I know you don't go to therapy anymore and all that, but my mom and I were browsing online and we found out that there's this social event for kids with Tourette's over at the hospital, I said, walking next to Connor on our way to class the following week. Connor stopped and turned to face me. You mean a support group? Well, sort of, I said. I don't need a support group. I'm totally fine. I just thought it would be cool to meet some other kids who have the same thing as you. You know, maybe even make new friends. Actually, this had been mostly my mom's idea, but she thought it would come over better if I presented the idea. Connor raised an eyebrow at me. I don't know about this. It would be just as much for me as for you, I said. Turns out I kind of like kids that have Tourette's, and I don't have all that many friends, you know. So I'd like to go and see about making some new friends in a place where I'm not the only kid who's sort of, and she uses the word, different. Connor continued giving me this really skeptical look. Really? Well, I looked up support groups for kids with no arms and, guess what? There aren't any. At least not that I could find. I guess Tourette's is a lot more common. 1%. Connor said as he turned and continued walking toward class. What'd you say? 1% of people have Tourette syndrome. Ah, see? I blurted. I bet lots of kids with Tourette's go to the social event. Support group. Whatever. It might be fine. Please, will you go with me? Please, 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 I begged. Are you saying you'd go without me? He asked. Why not? Because you don't have Tourette's. Well, I could just meow from time to time. No one would ever know. Connor gave me a playful shove. Fine, I will go with you. And then he rolled his eyes. And you won't need to meow. Mom walked us into the hospital just after 7:30. A receptionist directed us down a corridor and into a small meeting room. Mom promised to pick us up from the hospital at 9 o'clock sharp and left us there to brave the meeting all by ourselves. As we entered the room, we were immediately greeted by a boy shouting, "Chicken, chicken!" I looked at him in surprise, and he shouted it again, aiming it at no one in particular. I glanced at the other kids in the room. 5 boys, 1 other girl. What's with all the boys? I whispered in Connor's ear. Well, Tourette's is way more common for boys, Connor barked as we stood there surveying the room. The other kids didn't seem at all fazed by his barking, but they watched me with curiosity. That was okay. A pretty woman walked into the room and introduced herself to us. I'm Andrea, she said, shaking Connor's hand. You must be Connor. Connor nodded, barked, shrugged, blinked his eyes. He was nervous. I could tell. Did the author just show how nervous Connor is rather than just telling us? She actually did both. Connor nodded. And you're Avon, Connor's friend, Andrea said. Nice to meet you, I said. Why don't you two find a place to sit and we'll get started? I could see Andrea also had Tourette's by the way she made a funny counting motion with her fingers. But other than that, she seemed to keep it under control. I wondered if she must have just like a milder form of Tourette's or if she had just learned how to control it. If so, I really wanted to find out how to do this for Connor. So the chicken boy moved over a seat so Connor and I could sit next to each other. Then he yelled it out again, chicken, chicken. As I sat down next to him, he leaned over and whispered to me, "Do you have Tourette's?" I shook my head. No. "Oh, chicken." "I do. In case you chicken didn't notice." I grinned at him. I wasn't really sure. "I'm Dexter," he said. "Chicken." "I'm Avon." "Well," Andrea said, sitting down in a circle, "I guess we can get started. Everyone, I have a couple new friends with us tonight." She turned to us. "Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?" Connor was ticking badly by now, so I spoke up. "I'm Avon." "Avon doesn't have Tourette's," Andrea announced to everyone. "Yeah," I laughed. "Can you imagine? What a doozy that would have been." Dexter laughed out loud and shouted, "Tick, tick," and the other kids softly chuckled a bit. I really liked Dexter already. "Well, at least if you had Tourette's," the completely monotone, expressionless girl sitting across from me said, "you wouldn't have to worry about slapping yourself in the face all the time like I do." As though on cue, the girl slapped herself in the face. Is that her syndrome? "Yes, but you should see what Avon can do with her feet," Connor said, blinking his eyes rapidly. "Face slapping isn't that far fetched for her." "I want to chicken see what you can do with your feet," Dexter said. "Oh, maybe later if we have time, and Avon doesn't mind," Andrea said, smiling. She clearly enjoyed the lighthearted conversation among us kids, and honestly, so did I. Andrea turned her attention to Connor. "Please introduce yourself, Connor." "I'm Connor. I do have Tourette's, as if you couldn't tell." And he barked. "Well, welcome, you two," Andrea said. "We're so happy to have you. Why don't we all go around and introduce ourselves? We'll start with you. Dexter, ticket, ticket. I'm Dexter. And as you can see, I love to say ticket, ticket, ticket." Connor gaped at Dexter. "I have to know. Why that word? Why not another word?" "Well, Dexter has a rarer form of Tourette's called coprolalia," Andrea explained. "He says words and phrases, some of which people may find inappropriate, but he just can't help it." Connor turned his attention back to Dexter. "Yeah, but why this?" Dexter laughed. "Sometimes I say other tick things. I'm glad when it's just tick chicken. Sometimes I say barbecue, or pirate ship, or I love bubble baths, and some chicken other things. Sometimes I say my own name, which is really embarrassing for some reason to me. One time I went through a short period when I said, 'I'll punch a baby every time I saw a baby.' Ah, that was awful. People would run away from me with their babies." Dexter looked at me with a straight face. "I swear I would never punch a baby. I like babies." "I believe you," I said, trying to maintain a straight face myself. Just then Dexter cried out, "Barbecue chicken sandwiches!" And everybody laughed, and especially Dexter. I normally would never in a million years laugh at someone's disability, but I realized we were all laughing with Dexter, certainly not at him. And it was okay. I think it made everyone feel better in a way. Then Josh introduced himself next. Josh made the same whooping sound all the time and had what Andrea explained were several motor tics. This included bending over a lot and sort of like playing air guitar. Other than that, Josh was quiet. Then the girl introduced herself as Rebecca. I already knew Rebecca slapped herself in the face. She even wore little padded gloves to help soften the blows. Wow, I'd never realized Tourette's could be painful, even damaging to the person who had it. Rebecca also grunted and coughed a lot, even though she didn't have a cold or anything like that. Jack rolled his eyes constantly and shook his head. He also made this strange yelling sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Like he sucked in air so fast it made some sort of shrieking sound. Zachary rolled his shoulders so much he feared he would need surgery on his already worn down 15-year-old joints. Mason made constant noises with his mouth and pulled on his hair, which made his hair patchy because he pulled on it so much that some of it would actually come out at times. Mason had over 50 ticks. he told us. I couldn't imagine having to deal with that many uncontrollable things going on in my body. Besides Dexter, Mason's tics were probably the most embarrassing of the group. He hardly ever went out in public. I guess, like Connor. Andrea guided us into a discussion on how we felt about going out in public. More specifically, going places like the movies, the library, places that expected us to be quiet. Connor wasn't alone in not liking to go to the movies. No one ever really went to movies in this group. Rebecca was the only one who felt okay going to most places because her vocal tics weren't as loud as the others and could almost sound normal at times. If you assumed she had a bad cough or something, she sounded normal. People still got annoyed by her frequently, though. As cool as Dexter was, he was terrified of going out in public. I guess he said, "I'll punch a baby," in front of some dad holding a baby in the drugstore one day, and the dad nearly attacked him. Had Dexter's mom not intervened, it could have really been bad. And once again, I thought if he had been wearing the t-shirt explaining he had Tourette's, maybe the situation could have been avoided. Remember, that came up a couple chapters ago. Dexter also had obsessive compulsive disorder, which Andrea explained often accompanied Tourette's. It was hard for him to leave the house because he worried so much that the stove and the oven were on back at home. He even asked if he could call his mom a couple times during the meeting so he could have her check. And of course, Andrea let him. It sounded as though most everyone's parents were very supportive and understanding of the Tourette's. Well, everyone except Connor's parents. Some of their extended family members, such as aunts and uncles and grandparents, often accused them of faking it just for attention, like Connor's dad had done. I thought it would be exhausting to put on such an act all the time. I couldn't fathom why anyone would want to do such a thing or how anyone could think they were doing such a thing. It was so strange listening to everyone speak among a cacophony of barking, farting, whooping, shrieking, and chicken calls. It was also strangely comforting. No one cared about my lack of arms. They were all way too far caught up in their own struggles. And I, for once, felt completely normal among this group of misfits. Can you make a connection to a Christmas show, maybe, that was about misfits? Maybe. I hoped Connor felt the same way and would come back with me again. "So how was the meeting?" Mom asked as she drove us home. "It was great." I looked at Connor for confirmation. "Yeah," Connor said. "It was really good." Then he looked out the window. "That's great. What did you guys talk about?" "Oh, all kinds of stuff," I said. "Like what everyone's tics were and how they felt about going out in public. Things like that." I could see Mom watching Connor in the rearview mirror. "Do you think it was helpful, Connor?" He was kind of absent-mindedly answering. I asked if he thought it was helpful. Mom said again, and Connor shrugged again. "I guess so. Yeah, it was nice to meet other kids, like me. I just..." "What?" I asked when Connor trailed off. "I'm just worried I'll start swearing like Dexter. I don't really think of chicken as a swear word," I said. "You know what I mean." "You heard Andrea," I said. "It's really rare." "Yeah, but Dexter started out like me too, just making strange noises and movements. Then one day he started saying chicken, and everything changed. I guess I'm afraid the same thing will happen to me." I couldn't see Connor's face as he gazed out the window. Things are hard enough the way they are. I can't imagine how hard it would be if I started saying obnoxious things all the time. I think I'd rather have brain surgery at that point. "You shouldn't worry about it," I said. "I think the more you worry about it and stress yourself out, the worse your tics get. And maybe if you start saying words, it'll just be normal stuff like, 'I love African safaris.' Something like that." Connor chuckled. "You call that normal?" "Well, yes. For someone who loves African safaris, I don't think you should think about it too much." "When is the next meeting?" Mom asked, obviously trying to just change the subject for us. "Next month," I said. "They meet once a month." "We should go back. because we're going to talk about relaxation and how it can help when you're out in public. You mean when we're out in public, Connor said. You don't have to worry about that stuff, Avon. Maybe not exactly that kind of stuff. I may not have tics, but I still have to deal with people staring at me and treating me like I'm different. Yeah, but you don't call attention to yourself. I think I'd give up my arms to get rid of Tourette's. Don't say that, I said. I like you just the way you are. Really? Connor gave me this skeptical look. Yep, tics and all. All right, we're going to stop there. Have a great afternoon, and we'll start chapter 18 tomorrow. Bye.